So providing a handyman service, I get a lot of requests to assemble a lot of different things and also mount a lot of different types of shelving on the wall and storage racks and all different kinds of things like that. This job was unique because this was on a little bit higher level where the customer had actually worked with a designer. It was kind of more of an upgraded shelving system where they actually help you design it based on what it is that you're wanting to use it for. And so when I got there, I actually had this diagram that had been created that even included the measurements for where it belonged on the specific wall that it was even going to go on. So for example, in the diagram, it said the bottom of this unit needs to be 8 inches from the floor. That changes things a little bit when you have more of those details to be accounted for. And even when you're just mounting a normal shelf, you still want to be thinking through the different details of where it's going to end up and what could possibly get in the way depending on how you install it. And so in a situation like this, I knew it was going to be extra important to slow down in the beginning and really think through where things were going to end up based on where my starting point was. So it's not just about starting to throw screws up on the wall and getting it put together. You want to be thinking about, well, wait a minute, where is that final piece going to be and what is that going to look like at the very end? So you have to be thinking about that before you even put your first piece down. The other thing that can cause it to be kind of a slow start is you also want to be making sure you're using the correct pieces to get started, right? Because some of these pieces look very similar. It is so easy to grab something that looks so similar, especially when you're basically just looking at a black and white printout of the image. And most of the time it's just a line drawing. It's very easy to grab the wrong thing, and that can really come back to be a problem at the end when that final piece or the third to last piece that you need to put in is all of a sudden not working. So for those reasons, it can be really funny how long it can take to just get your first pieces installed just because of how much that first placement matters. Once I finally got that top rail up, then I was ready to just start going through the instructions step by step, following the diagram, and starting to install the individual pieces and putting them together. And even though all of these things really are straightforward pieces, and it's definitely advertised as, this is going to be so easy, it can be confusing to figure out how certain pieces snap together, trying to understand in what way it was really designed to be connected together. And so there was a little bit of that going on as well with some of the shelving. And that's the funny thing about these wall anchors is it's incredible how many different types of wall anchors exist out there, and it seems how many more are continuing to be created, because I had never seen this particular type before. It was a combination of metal and plastic. They were kind of challenging to work with. They really weren't working that well. The plastic piece that was supposed to be the part that was getting drilled into the wall and was then creating kind of a tension on the other end wasn't always holding up that great, and sometimes it would kind of fall apart to a certain degree before you got right where you needed it to go. And so I would have loved to use some of my own wall anchors, because I actually have created this whole wall anchor organizer kit of the wall anchors that I like to use, but I didn't want to do that on this project because I wanted to make sure to use all of the included parts and pieces just in case there was ever any kind of problem with the structural integrity of it. If something came loose or whatnot, then it wouldn't become a situation where it was like, well, wait a minute, you left out parts and pieces? You didn't use the included parts and pieces? You know, so just in case that could have been a factor, I just went ahead and used the original parts and pieces that came with it. And the last factor with something like this that can be really deceiving when you're just looking at time-lapse footage of something being seemingly thrown together very quickly is a lot of these steps, it just takes time, and you just have to keep going and completing one step after the other. And so towards the very end, I definitely noticed that repetition feeling and being ready to finally get those last pieces installed. In the end, the customer was super happy with how it turned out. And I have to say, I do think this definitely was a much cooler and above average shelving unit than normal. It made me feel like it was something out of a sports department store, just the way that it looked and the finish of it. So she was super happy with how it turned out. And she also let me know that she was so happy that she didn't end up trying to do this herself, which was something that she was initially going to try to do. And I think in some cases, some of these things do lend themselves to something that wouldn't be that bad to do yourself, but there were enough details with this, and also just the size of it, the importance of making sure that you were getting into studs and having certain structural integrity involved with it, and just the time it took to do it. She was telling me she was just so happy that she had paid me to come and do this. I enjoyed the variety on this particular job, and the customer was really great to work for, and the job ended up being a win for everybody just all the way around. I show creatives how to get paid to do jobs just like this so they can become their own funding source and have the money and free time they need to pursue their artistic interests. I break it all down at cashcowartist.com. The link is in the description.